I take questions if you have any. Yeah, okay, so right away, fine. All right, go ahead, Marina.
Hi, thank you for the talk. As usual, very illuminating. Thank you. Um, I have a question basically on when you were giving the example, there were three speakers, the Russian, when they were talking
The Colombian,
the Colombian,
about
and
high school,
when
yeah?
they were talking about high school. And my main concern is usually with lack of communication or miscommunication. And when you talk about egocentrism and salience, and looking at that example, they are co-constructing this concept of high school in this case. How is it possible to know or to figure out that the speakers are actually bringing to the foreground a concept of high school where there is an actual understanding going on?
Yeah, okay, so basically the important thing here is that they need to negotiate the concept because they see that they don't understand the same thing by that. So, they directly, if you go back to that, you'll see that, okay, let me just go back to here. So the first mention here is, and did you do some kind of studies there in high school? So the Russian girl doesn't know, probably, because if she knows what high school is like in Colombia, she wouldn't ask this question, So she asked the question, and then she gets an answer. They teach us chemistry, physics, everything. And you studied chemistry when you were in high school. So the Russian woman wants to have some kind of confirmation here. And then still it's not very clear what is all about. So directly she asks, what is high school like in Colombia? Because she gets pieces of information about the whole thing, but it still doesn't fit into what she probably knows about the Russian high school and the American high school. So she kind of wants to make it clear what this type of high school is like in Colombia. So it's there right away in the conversation, that there is something to discuss. You remember the cleaner and janitor. When the Polish woman used the word cleaner, the other one tried to correct the janitor. But the Polish woman said, okay, no, I'm just cleaner. Okay? So after all, it shows right away the discrepancy between the understanding of these particular concepts, All right. Yes, please.
Professor
Kescskes.
Thank you for
Don't
your
even try to pronounce it.
illuminating speech. Okay, I have a question here. Okay, so I think since all of the examples you have raised are dialogues, I just wonder whether your framework of intercultural pragmatics can be, make acknowledge or apply to written communication. The written communication,
What kind of communication? Written?
Not oral.
Written. Okay, written. All right. First of all, I remember. You remember that as far as the scope of intercultural pragmatics is concerned, this is just one of the things. So I'm mostly interested in intercultural communication. So that's why, because there are several different kinds of like native speaker, non-native speaker, and so on. And written communication is a little bit different, I think, but it depends whether it happens through a computer, for example, because computer-mediated communication is entirely different, so that's another field. But if you write letters or something to each other, of course you have much more time to kind of figure out how to kind of explain something, and later you got some feedback, and then you explain somebody, if you write longer letters or whatever. But if you take computer-mediated communication, that has its own difficulties and problems, because definitely the fact that they are not face-to-face it raises even more kind of misunderstandings than this type of communication. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. The question I have addresses actually the interplay between interculturality on the one hand and egocentrism. From an information structure point of view, can we say that interculturality is enhanced when the speaker assumes that the hearer does not share the same frames necessarily, whereas egocentrism will be enhanced when the speaker necessarily assumes that the hearer is to share and there is no negotiation in this matter?
Very good question, actually. Because you remember I talked about two understandings of egocentrism. I don't know whether Deirdre agrees with me. I don't know whether she is probably here. Whether you agree with me as far as understanding what you have in relevance theory when there is no cooperation. So relevance theory talks about preference of interest and lack of information. And as far as preference is concerned, I think that it is conscious. As far as the cognitive psychologists, Kesar, Barr, Horton, Coulson, and all the others are concerned, they talk about egocentrism as something that you just cannot help. It is based on your prior experience, you know, both in production and comprehension. The question is very good because as far as intracultural communication is concerned, when native speakers talk, I think that the type of egocentrism that just comes out subconsciously, automatically, it is much more present there than in intercultural communication. Because you're right that in intercultural communication, when we use a common language, and that common language is not the first language of none of any of us, then definitely there is sometimes this cautiousness. Actually, I know about that because all these examples are from authentic situations, and I understand authenticity in a different way than someone in one of the presentations who makes a difference between real text and authentic text. The authentic text is something that is in a particular situation where there is no any kind of force, so the students didn't know about their being recorded. It is a big no-no, but this is what happened after all, that when we recorded these situations, then basically the students didn't know that they were recorded. Of course, after the recording, we asked them to sign an agreement that we can use this data. But, you know, if beforehand I give them this paper and I ask them to sign, the data is not authentic. You know, because they are under pressure, they just calculate things and whatever. But we had conversations with them after these conversations. And of course, I don't think that this data is very usable, so I do not even publish that. But for the, just to answer your question, they talked about this fact that when they enter into this kind of communicative situations, they actually are a little bit more cautious. You know, so it is not that there is anxiety or worry or something, but what they emphasized was that they don't know whether the partners will understand them. So this kind of thing that I rely on something that comes out, you know, just instinctively, subconsciously, is not always the case there. Of course, there are exceptions. There are always exceptions when we talk about language, you know, like negotiation teams, the international negotiations teams and others that might be different. Yeah. You.
When you, in the first few slides, you were trying to discuss the issue of the subject matter of cross-cultural pragmatics and intercultural pragmatics.
Interlanguage pragmatics,
and,
yeah.
And their sources.
Mm-hmm.
The sources. You listed like the non-native speaker to the native speaker and some ladies categories. I was missing one aspect of the study, and that was variations, regional variations on a single language, such as English.
Mm-hmm.
And there you have, for instance, the Scotsman talking to the Irishman, and when it comes to discussing aspects of humor, I think that would be a good domain. So what would you have to say on these kinds of aspects of study like salience and these foreign kinds of discourse?
Actually, you may be right because as far as, for example, the journal is concerned, we published at least 2 or 3 studies like that, on variational pragmatics. And of course, I'm a little bit cautious, to kind of consider that exactly like intercultural communication. That certainly it is similar to that, but it is somehow between genuine intracultural and intercultural communication, so something in between. But definitely, as far as the journal is concerned, we published those papers. And there was a special issue on variational pragmatics as well. Unbaron and Schneider, Klaus Schneider, they are working on this issue. Yes, yeah. Any more questions? Good. There is no more. So, all right. Thank you very much for your attention.